Good evening, everybody. This is our May 23rd Town Council meeting. I'm filling in for Bill tonight. So for those who are online or want to be online, access to the Basalt Town Council meetings can be found at www.basalt.net under the Agendas and Minutes tab. Click on the May 23rd, 2023 meeting packet to open. On the meeting access instructions page, click on the link to join the webinar. All right, so first, though, roll call.
Absolutely. All right, let's begin with Dieter Schindler.
Present.
Angela Anderson.
Present.
Glenn Drummond.
Here.
David Knight.
Here.
Elise Huddle.
Present.
Ryan Slack.
Here.
And Mayor Kane is absent this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Our next item is the consent agenda. We have item 2A, minutes from May 9th. We have item 2B, a special event activity permit for a food truck at Cather's Home Furnishings. 2C is a special event activity permit for parking closure, Backroads Bike Tours. And 2D is approved town's tobacco tax grant recommendations submitted by Vale Board. I would entertain a motion.
I have a question about the parking closure. Can I take that one off of the consent agenda, or at least ask the question before we move past it?
Ask the question.
That's the question. Yeah.
So my concern with this is looking at their website, these dates have been set, and in fact, the early bike tours are already full and closed. When did we receive this application? I just don't want to make a habit of getting into a position where we basically have to say yes, like we're kind of backed into a corner here.
Hi, Councilor Howell. I can address that. I was working with Keaton with Backroads. They did come by last year as well for lesser dates, and they did have a few folks at Lions Park. We wanted to kind of formalize it more this year. Last year they did, or initially they did request to be able to end their tour over at Albany Park, which wouldn't necessarily require us to come here for a parking closure. It's not a street parking closure, anything that council would need to approve. Staff talked about this. We just suggested that since that area, Albany, is used by all of our area childcare programs, a lot of the area camps, we were the ones that actually really were nudging them to find another area. We wanted to help them maintain their presence in downtown so that they could, basically what they do is they end their bike tour, they have a place where they keep their bicycles, so they're getting loaded up onto a trailer. They all meet, and whether they meet and have a snack and then go downtown to patronize the businesses, which is what they did last year, or this year they're talking about possibly actually using the park to have picnics where the organizer would be getting food from the area restaurants and then bringing it to them. We wanted to kind of keep that interface between having their presence here and having them downtown, being able to patronize our businesses. So it was a push from staff, I would say, to allow this to happen in the location that's being requested. For the hours of 10:30 a.m. to 2 p.m., we would be responsible for helping to facilitate that parking, keeping them closed, and then reopening those parking spaces. I can understand that you might feel that we're kind of being pressed to say yes on something, but we see that there's a lot of benefit to having them downtown as well for that short period of time. And I think we do actually have Keaton on the line if you want to ask any questions of her.
I guess my other question is, it sounds like you're saying that they're ending here, but according to the dates on their website, they're starting here. Because the dates that correspond to these tours are actually the first date of the tour. Is that right, Keaton?
Keaton, if you could unmute yourself, you can talk. Keaton, did you hear the question from Elise?
We might be having some.
Oh, he sounds really, really faint. Turn up your volume, or is our volume
Get
up?
closer to the mic. Keaton, we're having a hard time hearing if you're talking.
I don't want to speak too much for them. I do know that they are going to be going down the Rio Grande, and my understanding was ending in Basalt. Keaton's.
Moving to
Keaton, you're on mute. And you're,
Well, while we're waiting,
Keaton,
James, how much is a special activity permit? Is there a cost to that?
there's not.
There's not.
Not.
Keaton, why don't you try to speak again? You're in the,
There.
There it is.
Still can't hear you.
you're double muted.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Sounds good.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Keaton. I work with Backroads, and our dates for the tour, we will be starting in Aspen and then biking down the Rio Grande Trail. And the hope is that we're showing people the valley from Aspen down the Rio Grande Trail as it was like a railroad, because it is the rail trails. And we want to stay in park in Basalt and have our bike ride end in Basalt on that day, so that we can show the valley in its whole grandeur. Instead of just being in Aspen where many people stay. And then we're not bringing the car traffic down, we're bringing just the tourists down, so we can use Heather's Pies and Butch Lobster Shop, the Tipsy Trout, and show the river. And we tried to do Albany Park, and like Sarah said, she's pushing for the river park, which we used in 2021, which was under construction. But now that it's not under construction, I agree with Sarah that it is a little bit easier for us to use that park. So does that answer your question? I'm happy to divulge more and explain more and talk about it more.
So you're just riding down on the first day of the tour to Basalt and then returning back to Aspen to the hotel via the tour bus?
The Rio Grande. So we ride down the Rio Grande, and we do ride down the Rio Grande. We'll do a ride through Basalt, and then people will stop, have snacks. We'll go in to get our food from Basalt, the town of Basalt, and then end at the park. And then there's an option to do a little ride farther down and then come back and then either ride back up to Aspen or drive back up to Aspen.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Happy to clarify more if needed as well.
Any
I'm
other
sorry for the
questions?
delay.
No.
I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks. Our next order of business is the call to the public. And I'll just go over the ground rules here. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Address your comments directly to me. Identify yourself by name and address when making comments. Comments should be courteous, civil, and constructive. And town council will make no decision nor take action except to direct the town manager. And again, just make sure you say your name and address and sign in at the back of the room. We have anybody who wants to make public comments? Ted?
Use my own timer. Thank you. My name's Ted Guy, 167 Swinging Bridge Lane. I am giving to Pam today copies of 207 petitions asking you to delay construction on Midland Avenue to the fall and to preserve diagonal parking. Secondly, I'll have Pam pass out to you comments. We did both paper and we did online. And online, people could add comments. And so there's a little over a page and a half, or just under a page and a half of comments that can be passed out, and you guys can read at your leisure. And I'll give those to Pam. One of the things that we found is that sort of everybody believed Mitzi when she said, we're listening, but we're not going to make any changes. And that's what they think the town of Basalt is going to do. That your decisions are made, you're not interested in what the people have to say, and you're going to go full speed forward, even though it might mean disaster for the businesses on Midland Avenue. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Anyone else? Call to the public. All right, anybody online? Pam is out.
We have Ms. Blodgett online. Ms. Blodgett, do you have public comment?
No, I don't.
Okay.
She indicated no.
No, I don't.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks. So we'll move on to mayor and council comments, reports and comments. Anybody have anything? Okay. Ryan?
Yeah, just a couple things. I do want to just speak to Ted's comment briefly with regard to Mitzi saying that we are listening, but we aren't changing the design. That public open house that we had, that was not a design meeting. The design process had already taken place and had been closed, and we had a design. The intent of that meeting was really to talk about the construction impacts, what the final design looked like, what phasing would look like, and those kind of things. And, you know, we have gotten some feedback on that, and, you know, I think it's useful. So, you know, I do want the public to understand that when they come to those meetings, we do hear them, but the intent of that was really to talk about what to expect and what the impacts might look like during construction. And then secondly, I just wanted to mention a nice event that took place down in Willits this last weekend. It was our Motors on Midland that moved down to Willits for this year, and it was a nice event. Lots of people attended, and so I think it was nice to see a lot of you out there. And then the last thing I would mention is, you know, you're really starting to see the River Park take shape over there with regard to that water feature. So if you haven't been over there, they just did a concrete pour this morning. And so you're going to just start to see that really come out. And I think it'll be more clear to people what those rock formations are ultimately going to be used for. So,
Do we know when it's gonna, are we having like a grand opening of it, or is it?
I think we would want to, and we'll work on that, and maybe a ribbon cutting or something, and maybe we'll do that in concert with the concerts.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan. Next order of business is item 6A, e-bike rebate program and event. Sarah and Michelle.
All right, thank you. So staff first brought this to council in March for a discussion and to make sure that council was supportive of the proposed e-bike rebate as well as an event. So we got council's blessing and we are proceeding with it this time. Program is going to be called Bike Basalt, Everyone, Everywhere, Emissions Free. This is a green team work plan item, as e-bikes they're a very efficient mode of transportation, provide a wonderful way to get around downtown and across Basalt into neighboring communities and get people out of their cars, as well as reducing street and parking congestion concerns. So we have partnered, you can go to the next slide. Our partners in this are area e-bike retailers, Basalt Bike and Ski, as well as Knox Cycles. They will be working with us, they have been working with us closely to ensure that they have enough inventory and that they are willing to participate in the program as well as the event. We have the official e-bike rebate program is set to launch on June 1st. You can go to the next slide, please. And just give you just like an overview of the rebate details. $250 in rebate, a rebate certificate will be provided to the first qualifying 250 residents. We're asking folks to be full-time Basalt residents, and we will be qualifying that when they pick up their certificates. They will begin the process by applying online. Our communications person has helped us with creating a form that folks will fill out. We gave it a little test this morning, so we know that it's going to be up and writing very shortly on the 1st. We're also asking folks to sign on to the Commuter Pledge, which states, using more sustainable ways to travel reduces harmful carbon emissions and traffic congestion. I pledge to use my e-bike to replace a minimum of 3 vehicular trips per week around Basalt or beyond. And so once they go through that process and they've been vetted, that they're through their address, that they're an area resident, then they would come on in and they would receive a certificate. There's an example of it to the right of the slide. That's what it's going to be looking like. We would be filling in, their name, their street address, their email address. They take that certificate to one of our 2 area retailers that are participating in the program. Give it to them. Their bicycle is reduced by $250 for their purchase price. The retailer will fill in the date and location, the purchase price, the serial number for the bike, and they will return it to us. We'll have also the Ryan or somebody from the town will be signing these prior to them taking it to the retailer. So the retailer is the one that'll turn it into the town to get that rebate money back. So in conjunction with this, James, if you want to go to the next one, we are fleshing out an event. When I wrote this packet, we were assuming it was going to be June 10th. We are now anticipating this to be held on June 17th in Willits. We're firming that up. This is an opportunity for the public to demo those bicycles, to learn about some bike safety, some bike etiquette, basic bike maintenance and troubleshooting. We plan on having a map to highlight the wayfinding opportunities around Basalt and highlighting those trails and those connection points and make it really easy to travel around Basalt by bike. We do have Aspen Valley Hospital committed to providing some helmets for us, and we're looking into potential other sponsors in the area that could also help with this event. Michelle, would you like to add anything there?
Yeah, by rolling this out on June 1st, it'll give citizens time to get familiar with the program, and we'll be able to get everybody signed up, hopefully. And that'll give the retailers some time until June 17th, hopefully the date, to stock up, get everything together, and get some more sponsors to participate in our event. We know that this rebate program has been really successful in the Vail Valley, Eagle in particular. And this is a huge step in achieving some of our climate crisis goals. So we're super excited about this, lots of good partners, and just one more step further towards the Green Team goals here.
Thank you both. Does anybody have questions?
Are there other rebate opportunities out there?
Right now, Holy Cross does have a $50 rebate that they'll still do. It's they have their criteria, and it's within a 3-month period after purchasing it. So on our draft webpage for this program, we do include that down the bottom that people may be eligible for additional rebates. They might want to contact Holy Cross. My understanding is that the state's rebate program will not be kicking off until, last I heard, it was like September, and I haven't checked in since, in the last couple of months after I heard September. So money could be coming, but we don't know anything about the state program. What we do know right now is that we are doing the 250 and potentially another 50 from Holy Cross, so that could offset a bit.
Thank you.
This is probably a retailer question, but just out of curiosity, what are some of the price ranges these days? And do you have a sense of what the supply chain looks like? I know at one point e-bikes were pretty tough to come by, but just curious.
That's a good question. I mean, I know the supply chain is something that Michelle and I met with these retailers early on about, and they felt very confident that they would be able to, when we said, okay, up to 250 bikes, they felt very confident they'd be able to supply that. The price point, can I speak to that?
What's really exciting about partnering with both Knox and Basalt Bike and Ski is Basalt Bike and Ski has a giant inventory that exists throughout their multiple stores, so they're able to pull in from that. And I think we had talked about anything from the lower end of, high 1500s to up, because e-bikes go to anything. But we had a big conversation about making sure that we're not getting only $10,000 e-bikes. We're looking to have things that people can afford and maintain. The other really critical piece here is having bikes that are not made in China, because the pieces and the components are not replicated constantly, so they have a short lifespan. So we're making sure that we're getting bikes that can be serviced in Basalt as well.
That's great info, thanks. Other questions? Okay.
Well, we'll be working with Mitzi to get this advertised. We're going to be advertising in English as well as Spanish, and making sure we hit this in a bunch of different ways to get the messaging out there. So you'll be seeing more of this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, our next item is item 6B, Midland Avenue Streetscape Update with Catherine and Michelle.
Well, my name for this is actually going to be Dave Detweiler.
Pinch hitter, got it.
Yeah.
It looks like he's actually Catherine Kristoff.
Yeah, he can be also anyone he wants to be.
There you go, I'll flip it down.
You all remember Dave Detweiler, he's with Wember. He's acting as the owner's rep for the Midland Streetscape project. And he's going to do the presentation, but I'll just say this is the first of kind of regular updates you'll hear from him with the high-level overview of how we're doing. So I'll let Dave take it away.
Yeah, so once a month I'll bring this back to you. I just ask if this is not the kind of information you want. If you want more, you want less, you want something different, just let us know. The reporting is for you, not necessarily for me. So please let me know if you need something different. So essentially, the update is the sanitary sewer work is 100% complete. All we had to do sewer-wise was in the spur here, so that's all done, tested, inspected, and moving on. The storm sewer, you can see, this is a weird project I will offer up. Usually when we're doing these reports, it's not right outside the door, and so you're not seeing it as much as you all are seeing it, so I apologize if it's a little, yeah, Dave, we can see it. Storm lines are coming up, water's coming kind of right behind it. That'll finish up here in June. We'll start some concrete work in June, and then the paving will follow after that. We still are working on potentially turning over the far end of the spur earlier than the upper end. You can see that's kind of where we're ahead, but we don't have that committed to yet. Phase 2 bids are coming on June 1st. We're going to have some interviews on June 2nd with those bidders, and so we'll have some information to report on that the following week. We do have some pictures here we've included. Again, that may be a little bit of overkill, but if you can scroll through those. If you have any questions about what you're seeing, please let me know. The retaining walls, everyone is on the design team and the staff side is thrilled with how they turned out. I hope you all are as well. They turned out more natural than I thought they would. I'll say that. Keep scrolling down. The services to this building are all complete for the sewer. Again, that's all some fun sewer pipe we're seeing. Keep on rolling. So risks, we're down to risks. Every month I will give you a little bit of an update of what risk we're seeing. We'll talk about any change orders that have come up, whether they're just in discussion or if they've been resolved. In this case, which is no surprise to anyone, the biggest risk is what's underground and what we don't know about it. We don't have perfect as-built drawings for everything that was built over the last umpteen years. And so as you dig out, you find something that's a little higher, a little lower, a little different than what you thought. We've had a few kind of head scratchers like, wow, I wonder who put that in and why they did it that way. So that's an ongoing issue. I will tell you our design and contracting team have been fantastic about resolving those out in the field. Sopris Engineering has a fellow who's on site full time, and as soon as an issue comes up, they start diving into what that issue is and how to solve it. It has been impressive compared to some projects I'm involved with. So you have a really good team that's working to solve those issues. And solving them that quickly means they're not costing you extra money, which is very important. So getting on to change orders, we've got one here for you tonight to talk about, and I will share that while you'll see a lump sum number on that change order, it's really made up of a couple of pieces. One, we've already recognized about $350,000 of savings from our initial contract to where we sit today. And that's a testament to the contracting team and the design team about getting efficient about how we're doing. So in this number, while it is an add, it's reflecting a very substantial credit. The add, while it looks like a big number, is something we always planned on. We've been working with Holy Cross Electric and the fiber folks to figure out how do we get infrastructure as part of this project that'll last long term. And that discussion and process just took a little bit longer than the discussion and process for the sewer water storm. So we elected to leave that scope out of that initial contract that we did because it wasn't finalized yet. So the contract we brought to you here a couple months ago didn't have that in it. Now that we've gotten the design finalized, we're adding that back in. One of the things I want to point out is while contractually, you always hear in the contracting world that change orders are really bad because the markups are much more, the percentages are a lot higher. In this case, because of staff's being ahead of this issue and having those conversations with the contractor early, and the contractor also being a great partner with the town, there's no additional premium for that big change. They're doing it at the same rates that they had in the base contract. So while it looks like a big change order, it's really just layering on another piece of the contract at the base contract rates. The other big piece that we're doing is we're setting aside a $200,000 allowance in this change order. You say, boy, that's a big number. The intent is we think the utility conflicts, for lack of a better word, or unknowns, might be a little higher as we continue to work our way up and we get more businesses, more buildings with more old infrastructure feeding out into the street. So the allowance is intended to allow the town staff within their spending authority to make quick decisions on solving those problems as we work our way up. So it can only be spent with the town staff's approval. So it's not like the contractor can just go out and spend it any way they want. But that's the intent of that, and if it's not spent, we'll just have that still in the budget for the next phase. With that, the owner contingency is about 1.8 million. We've got a big bill of Stutzman at 660,000 every month. We'll kind of tell you those big bills just so you know what checks are going out the door. It's not every bill, but it's the big ones. We're not going to tell you, a $500 bill.
Just real quick, is that 1.8 then reflected with that 660 and the 20? Or is that going to be coming out of the?
The contingency is separate from that. So that 660 and the 20 are getting paid out of what we call, the project budget.
Yeah.
Below the line, we're still carrying 1.861 of just pure contingency that's there to solve problems as needed.
Just on phase 2, or just on phase 1?
On the entirety of both.
On the entire, okay,
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah, and so as we bring other change orders that might come up and, hey, we need to spend $15,000 for this, and it starts to come out of that contingency, you'll see that number roll down. So again, we'll share with you what it was and what the remaining value is, so you always know where we're at.
So so that contingency's on basically the 12 million?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're giving you, if you can scroll down a little bit, the project budget, the little colored up spreadsheet there. So Doug's group and staff are in this system that we use that tracks all the invoices, all the budget. We actually get 5 people that have to approve an invoice before it can get paid. So there's a lot of checks and balances both on our end and the town's end. It sounds overly bureaucratic, but it actually works pretty quick because it's all online. So every month I'll give you this picture of where you sit. It'll show you what we've incurred, what we've spent, where the budget is. So far, we're tracking great. Again, that contingency is kind of the milestone of how we start tracking those change orders. Milestones, there's not a whole lot of parts and pieces out here, but the water and storm are coming along. Concrete late June, paving in July, and open to the public. We're still trying to work out, again, a little bit of a scheme to try to get some of it open early for the farmer's market potentially. But that's still in progress to see if we can pull that off and have it work and be safe. That's it. Questions?
Thanks, Dave. Questions, comments?
How's our timing? Are we on track? Are we a
We're on
little
track,
behind?
yeah.
Is it-
We're
running anything crazy?
we're on track. The day-to-day, hey, we're planning to do this Monday, we're finding, again, an existing sewer line coming out of a house up off of Home, right?
I saw that one.
Comes down and you assume it's gonna go here because that's the nearest manhole, but instead it turns and goes down the street, 100 feet, and you go, why did they do that? And in that 100 feet, it's in the way of something else. So we have daily battles to try to keep on track, but overall, yeah, we're on track.
I saw when they found that line.
Yeah.
Not like, as I drove by, I was like, ooh, that's someone's sewer line.
Yeah.
They weren't expecting that.
No, and that's the kind of thing that unless the person who put it in, handed in exact drawings of exactly where it was, there's just no way you'd ever know. So, I say we're finding these conflicts not as any derogatory statement against the design team. It's just you can only deal with the information that you have, and the information that we have on things like that is pretty minimal. Over the years, some folks, take liberties, I guess, on how they would install things.
We are finding fun things too, like a series of railroad ties. I mean, that's not unexpected, but it's fun to actually get to that level where there's the whole series, not the one-off. So it's just
And to avoid the problem in the future, everything that we are putting in, we are completely surveying, so that at the end, we will know exactly where it is horizontally, vertically, angles, all that. Everything is getting surveyed in, so the next time, long after me, we'll have better information.
That's great.
How's the design going for the center of town? Are you guys 100% there yet?
Yep. Yeah, they'll, the design's, fully baked in design. There'll probably be some tweaks that'll come, just, inevitably after we get out to bid and make a couple changes, but largely we're there and just waiting to see how bids come back in phase 1, or in phase 2, yeah.
So do you still stick with planters in the middle of the street?
Yeah, we modeled that with the most restrictive vehicles that will be using the street. We worked specifically with Picken County and made sure we were modeling their grader that has to go up the frying pan. Worked with the fire department to get the true dimensions on their largest fire trucks. So we've modeled all the kind of worst case scenario vehicles that would be using that, if you will. And one thing to remember too in going and thinking about that, right now we have an 11-foot travel way, a 9-foot center loading lane, and then an 11-foot travel way. And the new design will have 12, 12, and 12. So there will be a lot more space to maneuver, despite those few pinch points where those planters will be located.
Just some feedback on the status. I think it looks great. You got, what did we do? What are we gonna do? what's the schedule, some pictures, finances, all that good stuff. And what I really like and want to make sure we keep doing is, when there's a risk, what are we doing about it? What's the response? What's the proactive thing that's going to happen? Because that's what's going to keep the project on track and within budget, schedule, et cetera.
Yeah, and we've asked our team, there's kind of two sorts of problems. One that you identify in the field, and there's really only one way to solve it, and so you dive in and solve it. Where there's a way that might be faster, but it's more expensive, or it might take more time and be less expensive, that's when the team is really diving in to make that value call. Would it be better to wait a few days to have an answer that might cost a few dollars less, or to keep pushing?
Yeah, empowering people in the field where appropriate,
Yeah, we've got great people in the field, both the contractor and Sopris, especially their field people, have been just fantastic.
That's great. Any other questions or comments before we move on?
Can I ask a related question about since you mentioned the Sunday market, I couldn't remember the dates and somebody had asked me. Totally told them the wrong date, so I gotta fix that. But if the Midland Spur's not ready by June 18th, what's the contingency plan?
So our Sunday market managers have planned out how to hold the market in the river park.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and they're actually super excited about that. We went from a little shock and awe to, oh my gosh, if this goes over really well, we could possibly expand it if people wanted to in the future and have vendors on both sides.
Great, thank you.
Question. Anything else? Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
You
Catherine.
can stay here.
Oh, okay.
You stole my presentation.
All right, let's see how we got it. So item 7A, resolution number 22, series of 2023, resolution number 2, approving a contract change order number 1 for dry utility construction of phase 1 of Midland Avenue Streetscape project. So we have Catherine and Dave.
Yeah.
And Jeff, are you in on this too?
Dave gets to be Jeff on this one.
Okay.
And Mayor,
Is that a legal?
I'm gonna recuse myself from this one.
Okay. Thanks, Elise.
Well, Dave unintentionally gave my presentation, but largely, I'll just reiterate what he said. The deep utility work was intended and contracted for in our first phase, and then now this is a change order. I was calling it a bit of a contract amendment as it's not a true change order since we saw this coming, and it's really an expansion of the scope of work. And I just detail that the scope of the expansion is the fiber infrastructure, conduit for future EV charging. The current EV charging that we are going to have out there will have one new fast EV charger, and then the old one that was out there will be replaced. Also the lighting, the street lighting, and then the general power that will be available on site for opportunities like the Sunday market. They'll have more better and easier ways to access power for their various booths. And then, the contingency, just having that baked in contingency is the only other piece. And then I might add that by bringing in that $200,000 as contingency, we'll be able to avoid that 15% change order fee. So when we get these small change orders, like the wonky sewer service that might have cost us, $3 or $4 grand plus a 15% contingency or change order fee. By having this contingency baked in, we'll avoid that 15% upcharge by the contractor. And I would just add too that between the construction amendments and the contingency, add the total change order to that first phase 1 contract will be $605,000, $652.11. So yeah, tonight we just ask for your consideration of approving this resolution for a first change order to our existing contract with Stutzman Gerbaz, and happy to answer any other questions you've thought of.
I think the most important one for you guys to answer is how much did this actually save? Because it looks like we budgeted $910,000 for this phase, right? That was the original budget, was $910,000. So we saved $300,000 once it all got finalized, roughly. Or you look at it like you're saving.
I don't have that.
Yeah, I don't
have that
how
on
are
my
you getting the
fingertips.
900? Sorry.
I'm just looking at the original 100% price plan set.
Oh, okay.
That's for the electric.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
I don't have that in front of me, reference. But I guess I will just say that, you know, the savings we've been able to realize in the electrical scope is really getting all, making sure we have all that dry utility work in a single bank, and they're able to share the trench with the water line, and we're just able to gain some efficiencies in the layout of those dry utilities that we hadn't prior.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's the number, but we did take huge steps from the initial design. And when we got the initial pricing, it was kind of based, and I don't want this to sound negative to Holy Cross, because it's not at all. It was just, I want this, and it kind of got where we were running lines just all over the place. And we said, hey, can we pull this all into some standard trenches, and maybe what you want has to move a few feet or move from one side of the street to the other, but it's way more efficient. So that's where we realized that those kind of savings. The number doesn't surprise me, I just don't have the exact at my fingertip, because it was substantial dollars.
And we were able, as a reminder, to apply for that DOLA grant for 50% of the fiber infrastructure costs, and we're hopeful to hear on that grant next week. So maybe at the next meeting we'll have some good news on that.
Nice.
Any other questions or comments? I have one. So you guys always contemplated dry utilities, and now we've got some harder data around what we're gonna need to do in that specific area. It has a set of attributes, et cetera. So using that going forward, what's kind of the approach gonna be to get firmer numbers as we go up the street? Now that we know kind of what we're dealing with, you can, some more solid assumptions.
Yeah. So as they work through the finalization of the spur work, that was included in the bid documents that contractors have available to them now. So this will be baked into the bid prices that we'll get coming up in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, all that consolidation in trenches and getting efficient runs all the way through the whole.
Okay.
I would just add one other thing that's going to work for us in this scenario is that while this is going on, we're going to have time to do a deeper dive into the value engineering for phase 2. So we'll be able to really kind of realize more cost savings and more opportunities as we go on.
Yeah, and I will say right now, the way it's, the way Stutzman's been billing us, and, they've agreed to move forward is, they're really just billing us on work done, so we're realizing savings already in the water line and in the sewer and so on, and so that will continue. So just to say, on that electrical scope, it will be similar, and we'll be checking, as Dave said, along the way.
Yeah, as an example, we had budgeted some substantial dollars, several tens of thousands of dollars, to dewater the trenches for the sewer, because we anticipated they would fill with some groundwater. They didn't, so all that money comes back and doesn't get spent, comes back to the project budget.
Not even with all the moisture we've had.
They got done with it. They got done with it before it really started to come up. It didn't really start hitting hard till last week.
That gully washer last night was a little brutal.
That was a lot of water.
Yeah.
It's a little muddy out there right now.
Anyone else?
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 22, series of 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and then we can do a voice vote, right?
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And is Elise staying out for this
I
one?
think she's got one more here.
Okay, cool. Item 7B is resolution number 23, series of 2023. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving a contract with Ferguson Waterworks, DBA Grand Junction Pipe and Supply for the purchase of water infrastructure materials for the construction of Phase 2 of Midland Avenue Streetscape Project. Catherine and, not Dave.
Oh, I'm still here.
Look, good job.
Yeah, who's, Jeff, are you in on this?
Sure. I think Catherine will handle it.
Okay.
This next agenda item is for the approval of the town's purchase of the water system infrastructure for Phase 2 of the Midland project. To avoid budgetary and schedule impacts associated with supply chain issues related to these materials, Stutzman Gerbaugh has placed an order for these materials early in the year. And now that the materials are available through Grand Junction Pipe, the town is seeking to purchase them directly. And by doing so, we'll ultimately avoid the contractor markup on the Phase 2 contractor, and we'll just procure those directly to them. And then also, by ordering them early, it avoided any schedule impacts as well. So we'll have those materials ready and available to go. So attached to your resolution are 2 invoices from Grand Junction Pipe that total $151,000, $268.89. And I did speak with the sales rep, Adam Sherman, with Grand Junction Pipe, who's really great to work with. We'll be able to review the materials that we purchased with the Phase 2 contractor and make sure that, you know, all the fittings that they believe they need are there or not, and same with the pipe. And Grand Junction is willing to take back without a restocking fee any materials that we don't need. So, so we're in a good position there. So staff would recommend approving this resolution for the purchase of these materials for Phase 2 of the Midland Avenue Streetscape project.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seems like a pretty good deal to me. You can return it, save 12.5%. Right? I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 23, series of 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you all.
Our next item is item 7C, special event activity permit for town Wednesday night concert series. So we have Alex, Sloan, and Michelle.
Hello.
Welcome.
So as you guys know, in the past, the Basalt Summer Concert Series has been kind of a keystone event in downtown Basalt. This year, with our anticipation of the grand opening of the Basalt River Park, Michelle and I have been planning on something a little bit bigger. So this year, we're going to have 10 concerts. 2 of the concerts will be held at Triangle Park in Willits. Those will be on June 21st and June 28th. The 8 following concerts will be held at the Basalt River Park. Those dates are July 12th, July 19th, July 26th, August 2nd, August 9th, August 16th, August 23rd, and August 30th. This concert series will function as a nonprofit benefiting series, where we have paired local nonprofits with a corporate sponsor, and the nonprofits will be providing us volunteers to help serve our beer and liquor at the park. This is the first year that we've used this model. So there will be no outside alcohol permitted. We will have fencing all around both the parks and security guards running bag check. That is to promote liquor sales at the park, which 100% of the proceeds will be going to the nonprofits. We have worked with police, fire, and other town departments to draft conditions which are in the packet. And we also have site plans and the application attached.
Yeah.
Michelle?
And I would just add on, one, Alec has been phenomenal in organizing a lot of the details here about getting us security, trash, all of these things, because as we know, the town is small and we don't necessarily have an events planner, so we're learning as we go. But I think a couple of things that are really exciting here, we're going to have a local opening band at 5:30, followed by a headliner at 7. And the headliners have regional draws, so we're going to have people that want to actually come to Basalt just for the concerts and really promote some tourism here. So it's super exciting. We have the schedule kind of ramps up from a certain level at the beginning to kind of a big blowout when the park opens across the street, and just keeps gaining momentum as it goes on. We have been fortunate enough to have some really awesome corporate sponsors step up and tell us that this is a great idea. And I really want to list them all off, but I'm going to resist for now. You'll see the concert posters coming out this week. We had hoped to have it out last week, but we had a band that had a conflict, so we had to do a quick modification before we released the wrong information. But there is a lot of community momentum for this, so I think that we're going to have a lot of excitement in both Willits and downtown just around this whole new event and the use of the park here. So super excited about that, and anybody else who's interested in participating should reach out to the planning department. We'll try to figure out how to get you involved.
Questions?
Yeah, on the alcohol sales, that's donated product that's then sold for essentially, I guess, a donation at the end of the day?
That's correct.
All right, and then who's managing that? Like, where's that liquor license?
Each nonprofit will be taking out a special event liquor license through the town.
And do you know if they'll be setting prices or if you have a chance to review pricing and okay it?
I believe we will review pricing.
We're working. We got really good news on Friday about our spirits sponsor. I'm going to wait for the reveal. It's really hard. But they're going to help us with the cocktails and setting the prices.
Okay. I've seen another organization kind of, be like, hey, here's a bottle of wine for $3, and that ends up being a bad scene.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we
No.
we have a say in what,
No, I appreciate that because I think what we've been trying to do is, I've been describing it to the sponsors and the nonprofits, is make this a plug and play. So we are kind of controlling all of the liquor, the sales, the tickets and whatnot. They just bring in the volunteers to be the manpower. And that way we have some control of the quality aspect of it all, and also cutting off sales at 8. All the concert's still going until 8:30 or so. So, yeah, because we want everyone to have fun, but we don't want it to be over the top.
right, and those volunteers understand that they'll be serving, alcohol.
Yeah, and they're going to be getting each event will have to have at least 2 tip certified people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when do we get to find out who's playing? When does that happen?
Hopefully this week.
Hopefully
I think
this
it's
week?
coming out this week. Everything just got finalized.
Okay.
Get excited.
No
It's
teasers?
so exciting.
You can't give us one week?
I know, I want a tidbit or something.
Well, the worst part is that I'm not really a music person, so I know a lot of the names. Should we reveal one?
Drop one. Come on, guys.
Come
Come
on.
on. You don't say the date.
Teaser.
Just give us one. Just one.
Let's see, we've got Deer Dragon, Cruz Contreras,
Dragon Deer.
Dragon Deer, I said it backwards. See, I'm not a music person. I'm not the music person. I'm doing the other aspects. Thank you. That's why Alec is here, yeah. I need Alec for this part. Thank you. It's coming. You're gonna love it. I think if you make it to any concerts at Belly Up or any kind of venues like that, you'll know at least a few or maybe a lot of the music that's coming. So.
Good deal.
Cool, good work.
All right. I think we need a motion here, so I'd entertain one.
Mayor, I move the town council approve the special event activity permit for the 2023 Wednesday night concert series, and thank town staff for all their hard work and everything they've been working on this.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All
Nice
right.
job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Moving along to item 7D. And this is a public hearing and first reading of ordinance number 9, series of 2023. An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, granting special review, minor PUD amendments, site plan review, community housing review, environmentally sensitive area review, and associated development reviews. The construction of a domestic abuse shelter at 325 East Cody Lane, Lot H, Basalt Business Center, East PUD, Basalt, Colorado. James, I will turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. This is a public hearing and a first reading of an ordinance that would approve of an application submitted by Response for special review, PUD amendment, site plan review, environmentally sensitive area reach to floodplain review, to construct a domestic abuse shelter at 325 East Cody Lane. The property subject to the application is about 28,000 square foot, and it's a vacant lot at the end of Cody Lane. You can see it here. This is Cody Lane coming down from Basalt Avenue. It is zoned industrial PUD, and it's part of the Basalt Business Center East PUD. Some areas of the property include floodplain. Let me- For some reason the size got bigger here, but you can see here adjacent to Highway 82, they've got some floodplain area. The proposal is to construct a domestic abuse shelter that contains approximately 2,000 square feet of office space. Let me just make it smaller. 2,000 square foot of office space, domestic abuse shelter containing 7 client rooms, as well as 1 deed-restricted housing unit. They've also proposed 17 off-street parking spaces on the site. As background, the applicants received approval of a PUD amendment last year to add the domestic abuse shelter use as a special review use on Lot H. The applicants did not have a specific design as well as an operations plan completed at that time. They went through the PUD amendment for the use. So now they've developed that site-specific development plan and are back for council's consideration. The review process for special review, as well as the PUD amendment and site plan review, requires that the Planning and Zoning Commission make a recommendation to the council with public hearings at both the P&Z and council level. In reviewing the application, staff identified a series of discussion items that you have in your packet. And let me go back to present so you can see this larger. The items are in the P&Z memo that's included in your packet, and we also have them here on the screen. There we go. The first being consistency with the master plan. Master plan, as discussed during the PUD amendment review for the use that occurred last year. The property is in the urban growth boundary. It's near transit, and one of the significant goals of the master plan is to ensure people at risk of displacement are stabilized and remain in the community. Staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission thought that the proposal met that requirement. Additionally, other topics that we have identified for discussion include similar uses in other communities. Staff examined other similar facilities that are somewhat local when we were doing the amendment for the use last year. And the most similar facility that we came across was the one in Gypsum. And so staff checked in with local officials in Gypsum, and they haven't had any problems with the facility in terms of security, and it's been a good neighbor. There is a draft condition in the ordinance that requires that a security plan be reviewed and approved by the police department at the time of permit review. Other topics included dimensional requirements. The applicants are proposing to meet the dimensional requirements of the PUD with the exception of the building height. They're proposing to establish the building height through the PUD amendment at the ridge height of 6,445 feet above sea level, which equates to about 29 feet based on the town code. And you can see a diagram here that shows that 29 feet based on the town code limitation. The reason that they're asking for the adjustment in the building height is that they need to raise the first finished floor above the floodplain elevation to meet the town's floodplain requirements. So a portion of the building will be on piers, as you can see here on the screen. Additionally, the elevation of the site has changed a bit over time through the construction of Highway 82. And so the applicants have requested the 29-foot height limit, and the HOA has indicated that they're supportive of that change to the height limit. In terms of design, let me go down. The applicants are proposing to utilize board and batten cement siding as well as wood and metal roof to meet the material requirements in the PUD. The BBC East PUD has some specific material requirements, and these materials are also consistent with the materials that are required by the town's wildfire mitigation requirements. Regarding other topics, the affordable community housing mitigation requirements, the applicant has proposed to meet the requirements by providing a 1-2-bedroom unit that is proposed to be deed restricted. In the community housing mitigation requirements of the code, the town code assumes 2 bedrooms. 4 employees are generated per 1,000 square feet of commercial space, but there is an allowance in the code to consider employee generation proposed for specific uses that are unique, such as the domestic abuse shelter use. And so the applicants have identified that they believe that they'll need 5 full-time employees to operate the facilities. And by using the calculation methodology in the code, that would require about 400 square foot of community housing mitigation. So as I noted, they've proposed to provide a 2-bedroom unit that's approximately 900 square feet to mitigate that. Related to the community housing, they've proposed some special operating characteristics for the unit since it is part of the domestic abuse shelter. They have proposed that it be a Category 2 unit instead of Category 1. They've asked for Category 2 because it better fits the income requirements of their employees, and it's kind of a hybrid use between residential and commercial. Typically, Category 2 is used to mitigate for residential. The Basalt Affordable Community Housing Committee, BAC, was supportive of using Category 2 to mitigate. There are also a request to lower the minimum hours worked per year from the 1,500 that is required typically of tenants of affordable housing down to 1,040 hours per year. And this is related to allowing for clients of the facility to be able to occupy the unit. The Basalt Affordable Community Housing Committee, BAC, was supportive of that adjustment as well. Regarding the floodplain, as I identified, portions of the site are in the floodplain. The project has been modeled by the town's hydrological consultant, Robert Crable of Matrix Design. He determined that the first finished floor level that's been proposed is sufficiently above the flood elevation, and that the development will not increase the base flood elevation on adjacent properties. And he's had a letter that's included in the packet materials to that effect. Other discussion items include traffic. There was a traffic study prepared by SGM, and it's in your packet materials. It was done by Dan Coakley of SGM. He's also the engineer that worked on the 2016-2017 traffic study that was done for all of Southside. It determined that additional traffic from this facility to be minimal, and that the Basalt Avenue Highway 82 intersection would still operate at an acceptable level of service with the improvements that were identified in that 2016-2017 study. It included laneage improvements that had actually already been done with the Basalt pedestrian underpass that was built. And there is also a condition that's included in the ordinance that the applicant would contribute on their fair share portion of the improvements, as has been required of all the other projects in Southside to this point. Other topics, off-street parking. As I noted, the applicants have proposed 17 off-street parking spaces for the shelter. We do not have a domestic abuse shelter as a use in the parking table that we have in the code. But the uses within the project break down as 2,000 square feet of office, which would require 8 parking spaces, community housing unit, which would require 2 parking spaces, and that would leave 7 spaces for the 7 client rooms that are proposed as part of the facility. The P&Z felt that that was an appropriate parking number and that it would satisfy the code requirements. Other topics included acknowledgement of the existing industrial uses in the vicinity. As part of the PUD amendment that was reviewed last year, there was a condition that was included that when the applicants had initially brought in their clients, that in an agreement with their clients, they would acknowledge that there are industrial uses in the area that might have smells, odors, noises that are consistent with industrial uses. And so that acknowledgement has been carried over in the conditions in the draft ordinance. And then finally, sustainable building regulations. Staff has included a condition that the applicants be required to meet the SBR requirements that are in place at the time of permit. And the applicants have also applied for a grant to potentially make the structure electric ready and net zero. So the applicants can speak more about that as part of their comments. And then finally, we've got draft conditions requiring that the vested rights be 3 years per the town code. And the P&Z as well as Bach recommended approval of the application. So this evening, staff would suggest taking applicant comments and discussion, taking public comments as it is a public hearing, and then providing council discussion. And if you're comfortable with the conditions, you could approve the ordinance on first reading. We do have the applicants here this evening. We've got Chris Benden and Aaron Wackerly from Benden and Adams, and we have Shannon from Response with us. And let me cue up your presentation here.
All right, thanks, James.
Thanks, James. Good evening. I'm Erin Wackerly, and this is Chris Benden. We're with Benden Adams, and this is Shannon Meyer, Executive Director of Response. I also want to provide acknowledgement to town staff, 2757 Design, DHM Design, and Crystal River Civil for all their work on this project. We're here tonight to gain council's approval of the special review, site plan review, ESA floodplain review, minor PUD amendment, and community housing review for the Response project. We're very proud to bring this project to you, and we feel it will provide an important community asset. This project meets all of the town standards. However, we will go over and highlight a few of those for you tonight. I'll provide a brief background of Response and background of the property, what we're asking the town of Basalt, what we think of the suggested conditions, and how the project is compatible with the town of Basalt master plan. First, Shannon, can you talk to us a little bit about the organization and provide a little more context on how the project came to be?
Thanks so much for having us here tonight to present this project, the Holly Center for Hope and Healing. I think at this point, a lot of you know pretty much all there is to know about Response. We've been in front of you before, and we're really grateful for the support we've had so far. We do work with survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault who live in, work in, or visit the upper Roaring Fork Valley, so Western Eagle and Pitkin counties. We've been around for 40 years doing this work, and last year we served 171 survivors and answered 300 calls to our 24-hour crisis helpline. We've been providing housing through alternative models for the last 5 years, and we've really found that the demand for housing among survivors is gotten more and more every year, and our model is no longer sufficient to meet that need, which is why we came around to the idea of building a public-facing domestic abuse center in Basalt. The aspect of the public-facing is that we'll have our office and the shelter in the same location. It won't be hidden from the public. In fact, it will be promoted as a way to destigmatize domestic abuse in our community, so that people know if they're experiencing domestic violence, they have a place that they can go to for help, whether they're coming to get services at our office or having to go into shelter for up to 3 months, them and their children. Our process right now is we're both going to you guys for approval, and we're also raising the money to build this. And I would say that the community, the greater community's excitement around our project is evident in every conversation that I've been having this winter. Whether it's with foundations, individual high net worth individuals, or government funders or municipalities, people are really excited to bring this project to Basalt and to our community. We've never had anything like this before. We've already, even though we started this fundraising process in February, we're already at $3.1 million raised of our $7.7 million goal. And in fact, just an hour and a half ago, the city of Aspen approved our request for $150,000 towards this campaign. So I couldn't be in two places at once, but I was getting the live updates from my board chair, who was there for us. The Center for Hope and Healing is going to be a true asset to the Upper Roaring Fork Valley, and Basalt should be really proud to be the home of this unique and innovative resource for clients in need in our valley.
Thank you, Shannon. Now to give just, can we get a couple slides forward, please? Thanks, James. Just to give you a brief property background, this is, as James mentioned, the vacant lot H, which is within the Basalt Business Center East PUD. It's addressed as 325 East Cody Lane. It is located within a floodplain, which has a very specific development protocol. As you already know, the applicant applied for a PUD amendment with the town and was ultimately approved in December 2022 to add domestic abuse shelter as a special review use that applies to this lot only within the PUD. Now, while we wish this type of use wasn't something that, didn't need to exist, unfortunately, as exhibited by, Shannon and the amount of demand, there is a very real need in our community. Currently, this type of social infrastructure provided by this important nonprofit does not really exist, and that's what this application is seeking to create. Now I want to talk about the project and what we are proposing. The development encompasses construction of a mixed-use project. It will include office space as well as shelter, and the inclusion of an employee dwelling unit. Response anticipates they will serve 40 to 50 clients per year at this facility. And we will revisit this rendering shortly here. First, I want to talk a little bit about the floodplain review and requirements on the next slide. Thanks. As mentioned, this property is located within a regulatory floodplain. On the screen is an annotated version of what was approved in terms of the grading and drainage plan. All of the technical requirements have been met. We can certainly tell you more about the project's floodplain mitigation at your request. However, this development adequately mitigates for floodplain requirements for the property. In fact, it will actually decrease the chances for any floodwaters to flow westward onto neighboring properties on East Cody Lane. Now to touch on site plan and special review. The screen shows an aerial of access from the site, which off of Basalt Avenue onto Cody Lane, which is a publicly dedicated road. SGM was engaged for traffic analysis and ultimately decided that any traffic impacts as a result of this development would be minimal. Now on the next screen, we have a couple site plans. The first site plan kind of indicates the architectural perspective, and the next site plan shows some of the landscaping amenities. The intent of this project is that it will be all electric and utilize a green energy design that will meet the town's standards. Along the perimeter of the property, there will be floodplain compliant fencing along the entire property line. Along the Highway 82 side, there will also be some green screening for privacy and security. There will be a couple additional areas that are secured by fencing. Particularly, there's a area adjacent to the building that's an outdoor children's play area that will have additional fencing in addition to some of the elements of the parking spaces. 60% of this property is dedicated to open space. It will utilize native plantings with the design intent to maintain and enhance the site's natural existing vegetation. Now I just want to briefly show the floor plans. This development is proposed to be a 2-story building. This first floor plan is of the first level space, which includes office and then 1 shelter unit. Approximately 2,000 square feet of office space. Now on the next slide shows the second level shelter space, approximately 5,200 square feet of shelter. And then also on the second level towards kind of the bottom of the screen is the attached employee dwelling unit, which is a 2-bedroom unit. The design team is finalizing the square footage prior to second reading. The initial design that we submitted was approximately 7,900 square feet. The ultimate design may be closer to approximately 8,400 square feet. However, it's going to be conceptually the same as what you're seeing today in terms of floor plan, site plan, and will meet the floor area ratio for this property. So as reflected on these plans, the architecture and landscape designs are very thoughtful. They're of a moderate scale and are intended to preserve and enhance the site's existing conditions. Now on the next screen, we have an indication of what parking will look like. We are proposing, as James mentioned, 17 parking spaces, 2 of which will be ADA compliant, and then 3 of which, kind of towards the right side there, will have additional security by fencing there. We do feel that the 17 parking spaces proposed satisfies the town requirements, and therefore that the project provides a sufficient amount of parking to any visitor of this facility. On the next screen, indicate a little bit of what the building materials will look like. They will comply with the Basalt Business Center East PUD requirements. They will all be wildfire compliant. As indicated on the rendering, the design intent of the building is to utilize a very earth-toned and natural color palette that will meet the HOA requirements and is complementary of the neighborhood characteristics. Now I want to touch on the minor PUD amendment and our request for a height adjustment. At the time of the original approval for the PUD, the maximum height was set for this lot at 23 feet. The grade of this site has shifted quite a bit over the last 30 years. As a matter of fact, several different grades exist on the lot. In addition to the design requirements to mitigate for floodplain, we have ultimately proposed a building height of 29 feet. The HOA has approved this height adjustment request. However, we understand that height can be a sensitive topic. So the design team conducted numerous computer visualizations to determine that there would be very little visual impact. On the next screen, this is a perspective taken from the cul-de-sac with our development being over to the right, and you see the Isbarian building in comparison to the left. The next screen is traveling up Valley on Highway 82. And then the third screen is an aerial with a blue arrow there in the corner that indicates where our building will be located. So as you can see from these computer visualizations, the proposed design and height is of a building that is nestled into the site and neighborhood nicely with very little visual impact. Now to touch on the community housing, Response does have 5 employees. That's the entirety of their organization. No new employees are estimated to be generated as part of this development. However, we do acknowledge that there is a housing standard of the town. In this case, that equates to approximately 400 square feet required, and we are providing just over 900 square feet in this unit, which is more than double that requirement. After a positive review with Bach in Planning and Zoning, the town of Basalt has provided the applicant with some flexibility, as mentioned by James, for the community housing unit in recognition of this very unique use of this project, which includes the conditions that are listed in the draft ordinance. We therefore feel that this development provides more than adequate community housing in a flexible model that can benefit Response's employees, volunteers, and clients. The applicant has reviewed the draft conditions and is in agreement with all of the proposed conditions. And in closing, we do feel that this project is compatible with the Town of Basalt Master Plan. The design is of a modest scale, preserves a large amount of open space, is near alternate transportation. The goal is to provide comfort and refuge and fit into the neighborhood characteristics. We feel that this project speaks to the identity of our community and our ethic about how we treat one another and to provide support to people at risk. This project helps to create a social infrastructure that ultimately helps survivors start the first step towards rebuilding their lives. We want to thank you for your leadership in our community and for your time tonight. We feel this is a very special project and a very important project, and we feel this is a project you'll be proud to be part of. Please let us know if there's any elements of this project that you would like to see in more detail before second reading, and we'll make sure to prepare those for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. This is a public hearing, so I will start with that, and then we can jump into questions and comments. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Does anyone wish to come up and speak? And don't forget to give your name and address.
I'm John Cerise. We are adjacent property owners, and we met with their engineer and had some concerns, but one was there's a ditch that's going to be piped through there, and we just would like to see that it's oversized so that the debris that comes off won't be plugging it. And another one was there's an aged fence, and we'd like to continue the chain link fence from those other businesses to continue on down to the highway for security purposes. And then the other one is there's large trees, cottonwoods, they're growing up, and with the lot vacant, they're not a threat, but if there's going to be a building on there, they need to be trimmed, probably both on our side and their side. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do we have anyone online?
There are several people online. If you would like to make comments to the town council on this application, if you could please raise your hand on the Zoom call.
Anna's with 27, whatever that is. I never get it right.
2757, yeah.
There's no hands.
Yeah, no hands. So I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Questions and comments from my fellow counselors?
I just was wanting to get my head around the ask to decrease the hours worked for the eligible unit, employee unit, but possibly not, right? Because there's a request to keep that available.
Yeah, I can answer that one. So our intention is for that to be for an employee, but since we do only have 5 employees, there is a chance that there would not be an employee that wanted to live in that for a period of time. And of course, we don't want to have that standing empty, in which case we would extend shelter use into that space. We do find that almost all of our shelter clients that are in our transitional housing now work often more than full-time, but sometimes we will have a survivor who has young children and can't work full-time as a result of that, and we wouldn't want to be limited in not allowing them to live in that space just because they had small children and were single parenting as a result of the abuse. So just giving that flexibility, and obviously the only people that can be on site are people associated with Response, so that gives us flexibility to make sure we're utilizing that space to the best of our ability.
Do you anticipate having that many people that you would overflow into that unit if no employee wasn't in it? So what a lot of other programs do, in addition to having a shelter where people can stay for up to 3 months, is they have kind of longer term housing options available that people can then move into once they leave shelter. We have one apartment in Carbondale that we can use for that purpose, but that's it. And we all know how hard it is to find housing here, and really that time when they're in shelter, they're saving up money so they can move into their own place, but they're also working with our housing program manager to find housing if that's not feasible for people to have that other sort of stepping stone into independent housing where they could use this EDU for that. So it wouldn't be likely to be used as a 0 to 3 month stay shelter unit, but more that stepping stone to independent living.
So thanks for everything that you do, and I commend you for taking on the project, and the presentation was really nice and thorough, and the design looks great. I would like to see, I was curious about fencing too. I know you said you secured the play area, but there's ditches and there's the highway and there's there's a lot going on there. So for second reading, it would be helpful to see what that fence plan, is that a thing, looks like. Just because there's a lot happening there.
There is. Yeah, it's a pretty complex site. Yeah, we can get that together for you, absolutely.
Thanks. And the only other question I had was kind of around the roundabout. What's the trigger for the roundabout? Can you remind us? And it's a mountable, isn't it? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And we have an impact fee for that roundabout. I don't know that we have it scheduled to be like an anticipated build date.
We don't, and we've actually had an updated traffic study that has been worked through, and actually the trigger isn't till after everything that we have approved is built. That doesn't mean we wouldn't necessarily build it earlier than that, but that's what we've heard from traffic engineer.
Thanks. I don't have any other questions or comments.
And then I'm guessing, after meeting with Mr. Cerise, you guys are oversizing that, whatever the culvert, the buried line, just to make sure we're not flooding back up into there.
Yes, it's my understanding that the civil engineer will, and that will, yes.
And the trees will be.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah.
Just want to be good neighbors.
Yeah.
Awesome, and I appreciate what you guys are doing, so.
Yeah, and there will be fencing. We do have to make sure that it is floodplain compliant, just to that, but yeah, absolutely, yeah. It will be the entire perimeter of the property.
Thank you.
Anything else? Otherwise, I entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 9, series of 2023 on first reading and continue and set the public hearing and second reading for June 27th, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Glenn Drummond,
Yes.
Elise Hoddle,
Yes.
and Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great presentation. All right. Our next item is item 7E. It's a public hearing and first reading of ordinance number 10, series of 2023, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, granting a PUD amendment to permit a single-family residence with a home daycare at 400 Alexander Lane, Lot 1 of the Southside PUD, Phase 4, Basalt, Colorado. James, you're up again.
Yeah, thanks. Mayor, if you'd like to come up, please. Let me work on sharing my screen here, just a quick second.
Oh, sorry, Jim.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. This item is a public hearing and first reading of an ordinance on an application submitted by NJS Kinder Cottage LLC, requesting a PUD amendment to change the commercial daycare at 400 Alexander Lane into a single-family house with a home daycare use. The property subject to the application is known as 400 Alexander Lane. It's about 11,000 square foot lot, and it currently has one structure on the site. You can see it here on Alexander Lane. This is Southside Drive going down to the high school. This is Alexander Lane, and it's this property right here. The next slide, you see a photo of it. It is zoned industrial PUD, and it is Lot 1 of the Southside 4 PUD. The daycare was permitted on the site pursuant to a site-specific development plan approval that was approved by ordinance number 2 of 2017. And as background, the lots in the Southside 4 PUD are allowed to have two structures, one commercial structure and one residential structure. The PUD required that the commercial structure be developed either prior to or concurrent with the residential structure. And the applicants have requested to turn the existing daycare into a single-family residence with a home daycare because of financial reasons, and they can speak more to those reasons as part of their comments. The review process is a minor PUD amendment, and it requires the P&Z to make a recommendation to the town council with public hearings at both the P&Z and council levels. In reviewing the application, staff identified a series of discussion items that were in the P&Z memo, and they were discussed and considered by the P&Z. We also have them on the screen here. The first being consistency with the master plan. The master plan has several goals that speak to supporting childcare, and the applicants have indicated that the only way they can continue to provide childcare on the site is to convert the daycare to a single-family house with a home daycare use. The P&Z felt that this supported the master plan goals that were identified. Other topics included consistency with the intent of the Southside 4 PUD. As I noted, the PUD allows for two structures to be constructed on each of the lots, one commercial structure and one residential structure. The way it was set up is the commercial structures would have to be built first on the north sides of the lot, and then there was an allowance for a residential use on the south side adjacent to Alexander Lane. The applicants have proposed to convert this to a single-family house with a home daycare use. Staff believes that it still is consistent with the intent of the Southside 4 PUD in that it was set up so that they would buffer the residential from the Meyer Steel site, which is on the other side of the property here to the north. This is the only one of these lots along Alexander Lane that has another property on the north side of it to buffer it from Meyer Steel. So P&Z thought it was still consistent with that layout. Other topics included suitability of the building for residential use. As I noted, the current building has a accessory dwelling unit on the upper floor and then the daycare on the lower floor. To convert it to a single-family house with a home daycare does not require any significant changes to the building. And the applicants haven't proposed to make any significant changes to the building. Other topics included the vehicular access for the home daycare. As is discussed in your staff memo, the applicants also control the adjacent property, which is known as the Hobby Farm. The applicants constructed a turnaround on that site, and that's where the current daycare pickup and drop-off is. The applicants have proposed to continue that arrangement with the home daycare, and so staff has included a condition that you have in your packet that arrangement would continue. Staff has provided a revised condition number 4 at your seats that staff would suggest switching out for the condition that we have in the draft ordinance. It basically indicates that the Southside Homeowners Association has required as a condition of their consent on the application that the applicants continue that drop-off and pickup on the adjacent property. Staff is suggesting that adjustment to the condition that we've kind of worked out with the town attorney because we did not want to conflict with the state legislation on home daycare use. Other topics included the community housing mitigation. This property would be exempt from the community housing mitigation because it's under 3,000 total square feet, which qualifies for an exemption for a single-family home from the community housing mitigation. And then finally, other topics that are discussed in your staff memo, traffic. Staff actually anticipates there to be a reduction in traffic because there would be a reduction in children cared for on the site. So that would reduce the traffic level. The draft conditions that you have as part of the draft ordinance were recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. They require an update to the PUD control document to adjust the requirement that they have the commercial use on the site before the residential use. There's also a requirement, as I noted in the revised condition number 4, to continue the arrangement for the pickup and drop-off on the adjacent property to the west. And then finally, there's a condition related to if the applicants ever wanted to convert the use back to commercial use on the space, that they would be limited to the commercial uses that are in the south side for PUD approvals. As I noted, the P&Z recommended approval with the conditions that you have in your draft ordinance. This evening, staff would recommend hearing applicant comments, taking public comments as it is a public hearing, and then providing council discussion. If you're comfortable with the conditions, you could approve the ordinance on first reading. We have Mary Wolfer here this evening, also known as Miss Mayor. Mayor, do you have some comments for the council?
Just two, James. P&Z wanted to make sure that it would be able to go back to a commercial daycare also.
Yes,
that's one of them. Okay. And as far as the having to turn into a home daycare, I have another option too. I could charge each parent $150 to $175 a day per child, and which is not sustainable for anyone. So less is more, unfortunately, after COVID and 3 long years with no help. That's where we're at. So we would like to do that for the community and still be there for the kids. I'm a little sad that I had to go down with the numbers because I had 30. I had 70 to begin with and 65 to 70, and then COVID, and then we had let the the large care go at the kinder cottage. We deed restricted that back and gave it to the county and made employee housing so the teachers would have housing to be able to work for the kids still. That's how I could financially afford to have teachers for the kids and keep the rate. I didn't raise the rate. I stayed there. I gave parents all their money back, $128,000 when it first started. We just want to be part of the community and keep working with it, but that's where we're at right now. So selling our house will give us, we'll catch our breath, and we'll be able to serve still, just a lot less. And it will probably be kind of exclusive. It'll just be siblings, legacy, alumni, and I've done this 42 years now, so now I'm on grandchildren. So, but we're open to help more if we can. We didn't forsake anyone. I did this in January. James has been awesome. I just didn't open up wait lists, and I had 144 waiting. So it's super sad to go backwards. But we stayed true to who we have, and that's where we're at, and that's the best we can. That doesn't mean no one else will ever get in. It's just, it is where it is. So that's basically it. If you have any questions or anything.
We can open the public hearing now and see if anyone has any comments, then we can, I'm sure people have some questions. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Now, is there anyone here that wants to speak? Anybody online? Pam, you see?
If there's anybody online that would like to comment on this application, if you could please raise your hand on Zoom.
Is that,
Does not look like we have any hands
okay,
up.
yeah. Thought I heard a noise, but, okay, I'll close the public hearing and, questions and comments.
Hey, Ryan.
Hi, Ms. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Ms. Mayor for all the work she's done for our kids. I know
We love the kids.
she's amazing.
Yeah.
And so
It's all good.
I just can sense her emotion. And my kids, one of my child
Yeah.
was able to attend there, and it's such a wonderful place. So
Thank you, Ryan.
thank you for all you've been doing.
Thank you.
I'd also like to say thank you.
Well, you're welcome, Angela.
Two of my boys have gone there with you, and you better take the last one.
I'll get a little Ollie in.
There's just nobody else that I would trust with my kids.
Thank
There's
you.
just not anybody.
Well, it's Miss Katie and Miss Hillary, too.
Well, I mean,
They're pretty special.
and I just want to say that I feel like as a community and as a town, we've been working towards more childcare in the community, and since I've been on council, I've sat here and listened to a presentation about a big childcare facility in Willits, and then we have all this back and forth about Stotts Mill and looking for somebody to fill that space, and it just kind of feels like we're moving in the wrong direction in losing the childcare over not all of it, but in losing those spots over at Hobby Farm. And
Yeah, I'm open for suggestions. And just so you know, we reached further and we opened the home care yesterday. We got licensed again on the Hobby Farm side for the babies. It's not public yet because it already filled with just siblings. So you don't want to make people feel bad, but Hillary did it. So it's there.
you're also wonderful.
Oh, it's good for the kids. That property was made for the kids.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah, so Ollie will come sooner than you think.
Amazing.
I've got no more heading your way, but I want to say thank you too.
Oh, you're welcome, Dieter.
Appreciate
How's
it.
Genevieve?
That's great.
Big girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was quick. Thank you.
My son didn't attend, but I appreciate that you have doing this in a planful way and getting those kids off to kindergarten, next year and everything. That's really nice.
Yeah, so we'll keep the 20, we'll get them off, and then we have the 12. I just filled it after 42 years. I kind of know how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's, no one will be forsaken, but then it's just going to be small, large care. So the babies will just move over.
Entertain a motion.
Make sure I got the right one here. Mayor, I move the town council approve ordinance number 10, series of 2023 on first reading and continue to set the public hearing and second reading for June 27th, 2023.
With the amendment. And Dieter, is that with the amendment to condition 4?
Yes, with the amendment, the home daycare parking and drop-off in condition number 4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And Pam, would you please call the roll?
Yes, I will. Get Glenn in there. Okay, let's begin with Elise Hoddle,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes, and a thank you.
You're welcome.
Dieter
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
and Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
27.
June 27th. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care.
See you next month.
Yep, we'll see you.
All right, our next order of business is item 7F. Public hearing and first reading ordinance number 11, series of 2023, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving a revocable license and use agreement for the Basalt Center Association to use parking spaces in the town's Midland Avenue right-of-way and for approval of an easement agreement to allow the town to solidify emergency access through Basalt Center Circle and for public access for 3 public events per year. Jeff?
I will handle this one.
Okay, make sure.
Yep, this is an ordinance to approve 2 agreements related to the use of the Basalt Center parking areas, and it's really to preserve the status quo. This was kind of originally set to come to you guys last summer, but there's some disagreements on one of the agreements, and here we are now. But big picture, a portion of the parking area that is paved with parking spaces now as part of the town's right-of-way, and that's the right-of-way that was acquired from CDOT. And there's a picture in your packet that kind of shows that. There's these parking spaces and a curve that kind of goes along to the retaining wall along Two Rivers Road. And so those are all town property. They're within the town right-of-way, but they have obviously historically been used as part of the Basalt Center Association parking lot. And so there's a desire to formalize that use through a license agreement to allow for the association to use those areas, to maintain them, and through with permission of the town through this license. It would also grant the permission for the association to regulate the parking spaces kind of in the same manner as they would other spaces within the association parking lot, so they could post their own signs. And it would really be intended to be controlled, regulated by the association. In exchange for that, there's we have an easement agreement to recognize another kind of historic practice, which is to use the parking lot for access when Midland Avenue is closed for special events. Motors on Midland's closed, we route traffic through there. There's not a formal easement to do that, but it's kind of generally been done with permission. And so the second agreement is for the town to acquire an easement for that purpose, and then also emergency access in the event that the Midland is shut down for an emergency. That expressly would not be for the Midland construction project, but only in the event of an emergency. And there's some conditions in the easement agreement that if we are to use that access, we would need to station town personnel at either entrance to direct people in and out, and a few other things to try to minimize disruption in the parking lot and potential damage to the parking lot. And so this is an ordinance, it's first reading. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, recommend take public comment and approve and move on to second reading.
All right, well, let's open the public hearing. And if anybody would like to speak on this, please come forward. And if there's anybody online, please raise your hand. I don't think we have any public comments, so I will close the public hearing. And we have questions or comments in the room from the councilors.
Mayor, I move the town council approve ordinance number 11, series of 2023 on first reading and continue and set the public hearing and second reading for June 13th, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. And Pam, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Glenn Drummond,
Yes.
Elise Hoddle,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
All right, we have our closer agenda item, item 7G, public hearing and second reading ordinance number 8, series of 2023. Ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving Holy Cross Energy's installation of underground electrical lines and equipment on open space tract 5 and the public parking tract of Willits Town Center PUD, Basalt, Colorado. James.
Thank you. This is a continued public hearing and second reading of an ordinance that would approve of Holy Cross Energy's installation of underground electrical utilities on open space tract 5 out at Willits, which is the kind of open space sliver that is between the single-family residential as well as the Element Hotel in Willits, and then also the public parking tract, which is the Element Hotel's parking site that's owned by the town. The purpose of the Holy Cross installation is to provide resiliency to the electrical service to the tree farm area as well as adjacent properties to the tree farm. The town has a franchise agreement with Holy Cross that typically covers installation of electric utilities in the town's right-of-way. However, because this is not a right-of-way, since it's a open space tract, And because this is a public parking tract, the franchise agreement says the council needs to approve of that installation. So staff has drafted an ordinance that allows for that installation and the council's approval of it. It includes a requirement for shadow conduit to be installed per the town's shadow conduit ordinance. It also provides indemnification to the town for Holy Cross's use of those properties. This is second reading. It was approved on first reading, and there have been no changes to the ordinance since first reading. So staff would recommend taking any public comments that there are and then providing council discussion. And if you're comfortable, you could approve the ordinance on second reading.
Thanks, James. It is a public hearing, so I will go ahead and open the public hearing. I don't see anybody in the room. And is there anybody online? Looks like somebody might have dialed in, or I don't know what that number is.
If you are online on the Zoom call and you would like to make comments to the town council on this agenda item, please raise your hand on the Zoom.
Looks like we don't have anybody. So I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Or a motion?
Mayor, I move the town council adopt ordinance number 8, series of 2023 on second reading.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Pam, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. All right, let's begin with Elise Hoddle,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
and Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Nice job, David.
Thanks, James. I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thanks, and everybody have a good night.
You gotta use it.